Welcome to Joygasmic Shorts, a power-packed experience to give you the best out of our interviews. If you're back for more, remember to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us reach more people and create our shared dream of an enlightened planet. Thank you so much. Enjoy the short. Yeah, and I mean, as an adult who has been through sort of like this own journey of cleaning up my body, and I was like a classic GAPS kid where I had, chronic ear infections and partial deafness because of it, and like lots of mood instability stuff in my 20s. And it was like when I cleaned up my diet, when I did vitamin therapy, I haven't done homeopathic, so now I'm like, I need to study some more homeopathic stuff and figure out if I can get rid of my bitch in a bottle experience, because I'm great. But like, if I had known what I know now and applied that to my 5-year-old self, I would not have had to do the recovery that I spent like my early 20s doing. So the sooner you can do this for your kids, it's like the less damage control and the less, literally like the less hardwired brain neurons that are used to being frustrated, angry, upset about things, like, because that has its whole unwiring process that needs to happen too, which we can just prevent a lot of that by cleaning up diets earlier. And mom's role in it has a huge thing. Like, I held on to I let go of like wheat and dairy for myself, but kept feeding Alex it and kept sneaking things off of his plate for like probably about 2 or 3 years after I knew that I shouldn't do it. And that's where I love to help people, which is like, if there's like sort of subconscious behavior patterns that are running those kind of things where you're like, oh, but no, it's okay. And it's like, it's actually not okay. You're actually like in the long run, really, really, lowering the possibility for your kid by your own excuses, by your lack of choices, by, putting, like you said, putting money into like the more Band-Aid solutions without addressing the neurological, the physiological, the biochemical, which is really like, it's their bodies. And if their bodies aren't working, there's only so many soothing things you can do on the outside when the body is really, really struggling on the inside. So I totally agree with that in terms of preventative.
We hold a lot of responsibility in that, and that can be very overwhelming for some women. I've over the years had a few patients who have come to me who have brought their children who have a 6-year-old and they're fully menstruating at 6, and that is 100% a result of biochemical imbalance and toxins. And they're very difficult cases to have to deal with the adult, which is, I'm really sorry to say, but this is 100% lifestyle. Like, you can't blame this on physiology, because if you do this, and this, we will reverse this, and we need to. Your child is 6. And it wasn't just one case. Like, I have had over the years a lot of these cases, and particularly since moving to America. Yeah. And so the responsibility that we have, because the only food that they can eat is the food that you put on their plate, or the food that they steal from the pantry. Like, that is the reality. So what access are you giving? Because it's not like you sneaking a chocolate bar when you fill up your car with gas and you then having a guilt trip over it, right? This is hardcore responsibility to say, I have to get this whole thing sorted out because my kids are powerless in this situation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and 3 to 4 months, these kids stop menstruating because they stop being fed hormone-laden chicken and dairy and fast food. Right. Wow. Oh my gosh, my brain is a little boggled at the idea of 6-year-olds menstruating because of food toxicity. I had thought that might be one of the causes when I'd heard that like girls were starting to menstruate earlier, like 10-ish versus like 14-ish or whatever. I had thought that like the toxicity was a part of it. And then there's a conversation around like adult women who have high toxicity, like having more challenging periods and they are. And the other big contributing factor, which is interesting, Elena, is there's actually a lot of estrogen in our waterways because there are so many women on high estrogen contraception. And so we've actually now have it in our water supply as well. And so that's a big contributor, and there's a big debate about whether that's actually got with this whole LGBTQ and trans kids and all of that kind of thing. And it's just very interesting, and it's a fact that we have to look at. So whether we understand it or agree with all of it, we do have to make some conscious choices for our kids and say, what are we exposing and what are the choices that we're making available to them?
Mhm.
because it's everywhere. It's in the food that they eat, it's in the water that they have, and this is why the organic food and the filters are just essential.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great episode that I did with a nutritionist, Holly Booker, who works specifically with kids, who was like, your job to provide healthy food for your kids to eat, their job to decide how much and what from what you provide they're going to eat. And it's
I
like,
love
if you
that.
have potato chips in your pantry, they will, that you're providing that as part of, and like potato chips their own thing. That's totally like a cheat food in our house. um because it's important to have like cheat foods and treat foods and all that jazz, so that psychologically, but the quality of that product, the quality of, if you've got candy bars in your pantry, you're saying it's totally fine for you to eat this, versus saying, actually, this candy bar is going to make you irritable, grumpy, upset, and horrible to deal with for the next 4 days. And you said you went through that whole thing yourself. It's a process, and I think it's super important to be gentle with ourselves in the fact that it is a process and it does take time. But at some point you have to weigh and go, are the consequences, are the life experiences that I'm having as a result of making these choices, are they worth it? For me, it was like, I chose to eat dairy. I wanted to throw myself off a bridge. I didn't eat dairy. I don't want to throw myself off a bridge. Do I want to struggle with wanting to throw myself off a bridge every day? Let me think about that. It's like, well, for a long time, it seemed like a sort of normal part of life. But if I take dairy out, or eggs out, or some combination thereof, and I don't want to do that anymore, how much more peaceful and joyful and rewarding is life without of those things? And we've just given a really great list of what some of those things are. And if people have excuses, or they go, I've tried doing that, but I get caught on this, like those little things, like it's so easy to repattern those things in a really powerful way when you're ready to do it. You have to be ready to do it.
Like that.
On a big mission to end family trauma in this generation, and so I'm working with conscious moms to create a powerful change where we can become bulletproof, where we have no triggers, where our children cannot touch us no matter what they throw at us, so that we can be the kind of moms that we needed and the kind of moms that we want to be for this new generation, so that we can end rape, we can end trauma, we can end neglect, we can end sexual shame, we can end consumerism, we can end screen addiction, we can end all of these things by how we choose to parent and how we show up in the world. So I invite you to be here on this journey with me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the other side. So get your name and email in that box and join me on this journey. It's going to be an incredible 7 days where you are guided every day to understand how to create better habits, how to not give up, and how to implement the 60-second hack to rewire your brain, so that you know that no matter what's happening, you'll come back to a loving place fast. I love you. I'll see you on the other side.